So I was watching a education committee meeting and in Florida, and some people got up, some representatives, and they said that a tribe in Africa, the Maasai tribe, when they greet each other, they say to each other, how are the children? And the question that they'd like to hear back is, or the answer, excuse me, they'd like to hear back is, the children are well. And so I ask all of you in this room right now, as we look at the United States of America, and we see the state of our children, how are the children? They're not well. And we know that, we're seeing that, right? Declining test scores, we see results coming in about mental health issues, depression, anxiety. The children are not well. And so I'm very excited to invite onto the stage some leaders in education across the United States of America. We're going to talk about the future of education in America, and I'm going to invite now Ellen Weaver, State Superintendent of South Carolina, Ryan Walters, State Superintendent of Oklahoma, Manny Diaz, Commissioner of Education in Florida, and Jacob Oliva, Arkansas Department of Education Secretary. Okay, I'm so excited for this panel. This is kind of my thing. If you guys know, Tina and I served as school board members. We've been really involved in education policy. I know Manny, he's Commissioner of Education in Florida, and then Jacob was working in the Department of Education in Florida, and now you're serving for Sarah Huckabee Sanders. So congratulations on that new appointment.
Are there any Arkansans out here? All right, we got a few, so welcome.
Wonderful. We'll start with you for a second, Jacob. I'd love if everybody could just kind of run down. Tell us, how did you come to this position to be leading in education in your state?
Well, that's a great question. I ask myself that all the time. How did I end up here? How did I end up here on this stage? But first, before I do that, I want to thank you and your organization.
Thank you.
A lot of people probably don't realize how hard it is to put a conference on like this. It has gone off without a hitch, so congratulations to you and the team here today. And I love the fact that it's in Philadelphia. So I'm a former classroom teacher, so I'll start how I got here. I actually started working with special education students at the elementary level. And in fact, when I went to school to become a teacher, so when you're an education major, you have to do your teaching internship with a veteran teacher in a classroom. And the teacher I did my student internship is here today, and I got to see her.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow, where is that? Stand up, please. Oh, that's lovely.
So that was about 20-something years ago. I got to learn from some of the best. So
wonderful.
It's an actual true homecoming, but I love the fact that we're in Philadelphia because I did my homework, because you have to do homework.
Of course, you're a teacher, I get it, yeah.
You're ready.
Not me, maybe I wasn't so great with the homework.
So I looked up the meaning of Philadelphia, and it's from Greek roots for Phileo and Adelphos, which is love brother. So we're in the city of brotherly love. So I think at the end of this conference, we're also going to be known as the city of motherly love.
Nice.
Maybe some of the goal of some.
I love that.
But really quickly, see, I used to work with him. He's shaking his head. He's used to this. I started as a classroom teacher, and then was able to go into a school administration. I served as an elementary school principal, high school principal. I was a school superintendent, all in the state of Florida. And then I got an opportunity to join the Department of Education. I worked for about 4.5 years serving the DeSantis team and the leadership there, and then got a wonderful call from a then governor-elect, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, that says, we're about to make Arkansas be #1 in the nation in education. We want you to be a part of that initiative. And I started there in January doing some really good work that we're really proud of.
We were excited to see you take that job, and we know you guys are doing great things in Arkansas. We're going to talk about that. So,
well,
Mr. Diaz,
it's tough to follow Jacob as he tries to take all of our stuff from Florida. But I too started.
We didn't copyright any of that, just so you know.
I started as a classroom teacher, school administrator, and then I got elected I'm a recovering legislator, so I spent 10 years in the Florida legislature. I was in the Florida House, where I chaired education committees and the Education Appropriations Committee, and then I was fortunate to serve in the Florida Senate and come in at the same time that Governor DeSantis got elected, and I served as the chair of the Education Committee in the Florida Senate, and we worked on the Family Empowerment Scholarship, the first one in 2019, when Governor DeSantis came in and said, we're going to eliminate this waiting list. Parents need to be able to choose where their kids go to school, what's best for their kids. And so after serving in the Senate for 4 years, there was an opening, and Governor DeSantis reached out and asked if I would become the Commissioner of Education. And it's just been an incredible opportunity to half the stuff, more than half the stuff that I get to implement, I had a hand in drafting or writing when I was in the legislature. And so it really is incredible to watch it from the other end. But what a time to be involved in education policy, right? Because it's so incredible. Your movement, the movement of all the Moms for Liberty, to be able to actually get what we've been looking for such a long time, to pay attention to what's going on in our schools. And
right.
so I'm very fortunate. I appreciate Governor DeSantis for the opportunity and his leadership, and that's how I got here.
Wonderful. Ryan?
Well, first of all, God bless you, Moms for Liberty. You know, you're in good company with some of the attacks that you've had. We're here in Philadelphia, and you know what? You know who else was called a terrorist group, an extremist group? Those founding fathers.
That's right.
You know, that's who you are today. You are the most patriotic, pro-America group in the country right now. And let me tell you, the Biden administration, radical teachers unions, the fake news media will have all kind of headlines about you. But you know what? If they really want to do their job, the headline would be, "This is the most important conference to happen in Philadelphia since 1776.
Oh. That's awesome.
What we have seen in these past few years, the radicalism that the left has taken to try to force socialism and Marxism in our classrooms, is the most outrageous thing this country has ever seen.
Yeah.
You are on the front lines of it. I was a public school teacher, and most importantly, I was a parent. I was a parent that sat back and said, things should be better for our kids. My wife and I have these conversations every night, and my wife would go, look, it just seems like common sense to me.
Right.
Math, reading, science, and a love for America,
Yep.
and an understanding of our history. But the reality is the forces that you all are fighting, these are folks that want to destroy our society, they want to destroy your family, and they want to destroy America as we know it. This is the fight that we're in, folks. The stakes couldn't be higher, and I couldn't thank you enough for your courage to be on the front lines. And the reason that I ran for elected office, took the millions of dollars of attacks for the teachers' unions, is because I looked around at all of these moms and these parents across our state and across the country and said, if you give these folks the power like they used to have, we will be a leader in education, and that's why I'm going to continue to fight for you.
Ellen?
Well, I think for all of us sitting on this stage, I think we would say, and certainly for me, that the journey to where I am today starts with a call. And I truly believe that saving our country starts with saving our schools. There is nothing more precious that God has created than the hearts and the minds of our young people. And that is what the radical woke left is after. Make no mistake, saving our country starts with saving our schools. And we know that a great education is the front door of the American dream. It has been true in my life, it has been true in the life of every single person sitting on this stage, and it's true in the lives of everyone sitting in front of me today. And so, as I think about the importance of this group and why it matters that you are so passionate and so engaged and so involved, it's because these schools don't belong to educators, they don't belong to the elite, they belong to all of us. And I will tell you that my path to this job was not through the traditional education pathway. I worked on Capitol Hill, and I started a think tank that works in public policy. And the deeper I went into education policy and education issues, I saw that we were having the same conversations over and over and over again. 2/3 of our children not proficient in reading and math. What were we doing about it? And I got tired of sitting on the sidelines. And I said, all right, I'm going to put myself out there for the slings and the arrows that I know I'm going to take, because like Ryan, it's an elected position in South Carolina. And if you'll allow me just a quick point of personal privilege, can I hear it for the South Carolina ladies who are here and men who worked so hard for me to get me to where I am today? But, you know, they're the ones who we're really fighting for here. And so my message to you in all of this is that they told me, the media told me, so many people told me, you're not qualified to run for this job. Don't ever let anybody tell you that you are not qualified to make the decisions that need to be made for your children. So it's time for us all to stand up together, and that's why I ran.
So you brought up 2/3 of American children not reading on grade level. We just finished some nationwide polling. We saw that 70% of Americans think that the education system is on the wrong track. 70%. So this is not a partisan issue. I think the majority of American parents and Americans are with us. What are you doing in your state to address the literacy crisis in America?
Well, I'll say that really, if you care about justice and equality of opportunity, literacy is the foundational skill that you have to have. And so instead of teaching a bunch of woke nonsense in our schools, let's get back to the basics. Yeah. Let's teach how to read. The debate is over. We know whole language is dead. We have got to teach phonics in our classroom. And so in South Carolina, I am so proud of the coalitions that we are building. Our General Assembly provided enough money for us to invest in the kind of professional development that it's going to take for our teachers to know how to teach reading according to what the neurological and brain science tells us.
Good. I open this up to the rest. Does anyone else want to talk about what are you doing in your schools? And Ellen, let's be specific, because I think there might be people watching that are saying, well, what type of teacher training? What type of curriculum? What should we be looking for? So if you want to dig in a little bit and share some of the innovative things that you're doing, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, I think what Ellen touched on is, and Governor DeSantis obviously outlined all of the things we're doing in Florida, but if you take those things as a whole, it boils down to back to basics, right? It boils down to the fact that this isn't a partisan issue. It's what are we doing in our schools? There's a problem when your LGBT plus whatever guide is 27 pages and your reading strategies are 3 pages at a district. We need to get all of this woke stuff out, and he talked about the textbook adoption process. That's one way where we have to be very vigilant, where we literally have scoured these books to make sure that they're not slipping these subtleties in. And it's incredible how many times they're continuing to try to do it, and if you allow it to happen, it's going to seep into the classroom. Now, if you have a teacher who's innocent, who's just trying to do their job, and they're taking this textbook and they're trying to follow this guide, they're slipping all of this indoctrination into our schools, and that's what we have to stop. Math is math. For God's sakes, last year we had an adoption for math textbook. Jacob was there, and we're looking through these math books. What happened to a train left City A going in this direction and another train left City B heading this direction? How long does it take? No, we're talking about, having 2 moms or 2 dads. That's ridiculous. Let's get back to, if you only have half of your kids reading on grade level with 3rd grade, which we know is a problem, but you're worried about pronouns and you're worried about LGBT guides and all of those things, then we're not serving our kids. And that's exactly where this woke agenda is taking us. And in Florida, I'm very proud. Obviously, the governor laid out the entire, it's a list of things, but the very little things that people don't pay attention, those are the things that are affecting our kids in their daily lives. Remember, these are the foundational years. If we allow that stuff to seep into our kids' minds, what happens 10 years down the line? You can never erase that.
Jacob, you guys I just saw some tweets. You guys have a brand new initiative in Arkansas. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So under Governor Sanders' leadership, she has a bold vision of improving learning in the state of Arkansas. For decades, Arkansas is ranked in the upper 40s nationally. So we know what we're doing is not working, and we need to do something different. We're asking ourselves, why are we keep getting the same results? Well, if the system's not aligned, I always like to say bad systems beat good people every time.
Right.
And so we've got to have an aligned system that starts with supporting parents at home from birth. So we talked a little bit about some of these initiatives in kindergarten, first and second grade, but we're working on reimagining the early learning space so that every parent that wants to have an opportunity to participate in high quality childcare or pre-kindergarten has the ability to do so, because right now it's just fragmented and uncoordinated. We have to get more students coming to kindergarten ready to learn. There is a direct correlation between kindergarten readiness and third graders reading at or above grade level. But once they come to us in kindergarten, we've got to make sure that teachers are trained in the science of reading. The research is very clear. The #1 impact on students improving learning is the teacher standing in front of them each and every single day. It is very, very clear, so we have to give them the tools. We heard Governor DeSantis talk about Common Core. Some of those frameworks aren't built on the science of reading. This is why it's still happening in our classroom. The textbooks haven't been aligned to high quality standards built on the science of reading. Progress monitoring got to be rewritten to be built on those expectations that we know for students need to learn. But also with our Learns initiative, we're doubling down, adding 120 literacy coaches statewide to work with school districts to make sure teachers are trained and have support. And then additionally, if you're in kindergarten through third grade and a parent realizes that their child is struggling to learn how to read, they can get access to up to $500 a year to get tutoring above and beyond the school day. This notion that a one-size-fits-all approach for all students and families doesn't work. So we're also, most importantly, empowering parents to make decisions to find educational environments that works best for their children and their families' needs.
Ryan.
And you know, folks, when you look at these latest NAEP scores, you see this huge trajectory. And one of the things I want to make really clear is it's not just COVID. We were doing bad before COVID. Obviously, school shutdowns didn't help, but it's also been accelerated because we've gone from not doing a good job of teaching the science of reading, not driving home the basics in math, to now teaching gender ideology and critical race theory. And this is where you all had the answer. We've got our local chapter, Janice Danforth. She runs Oklahoma Moms for Liberty here. She's a rock star. She starts showing up at some of her local school board meetings, and getting through some transparency measures, finds out they've set up the whole board meetings to try to quiet her and her group. Yep. Well, come to find out, they're sending teachers to all these bogus trainings. They have all this incredibly over-the-top material in their classroom. So we've gone from a spot where we already weren't doing a good job. We weren't. And by the way, remember who got us to not doing a very good job. It's your teachers' unions, it's your academic elite who think that they know better than you. And they're dead wrong. They're wrong every time on this, folks. The federal government comes up with a new initiative every few years. They give you some money, and they think that they can control states and schools. It is absurd. It is ridiculous. We don't need a federal Department of Education, folks.
A lot of moms like to hear that. You know, Ryan, to that point, I'll interrupt for a second. When I see Miguel Cardona sitting in a congressional hearing and being asked 3, 4, 5 times, do you intend to take back lunch money, free and reduced lunch money from kids who have food insecurity in order to push Title IX regulations so that boys can go into girls' bathrooms? What are you thinking when you're watching that, when he refuses to answer that question?
Well, they're showing their hand. They will do anything to bully and intimidate our education system, to preach ideology, to preach socialism. This is an end goal for them. If we control the schools, if we will threaten you and bully you enough, we just don't think you states will stand up for us. We think you parents will be bullied by the headlines. We think you parents will be bullied by being labeled extremists and everything else. But the reality is you guys aren't going away, are you?
No.
And again, the answer is there. It's easy to see. Guys, you remember Hooked on Phonics? It was like literally one of the best-selling, infomercials on TV. And it's really simple. We know how to teach reading. It's phonetics. You understand how to. But we have allowed the elites and these labor unions to control the system. And so every part of it does not work for student success. Hey, I'm a big believer. Performance pay. Your teacher does well, hey, pay them more. Transparency. Parents, you should be able to see what happens in the school every single day. School choice. Give full power to the parent. But folks, we have to be aggressive. They are not going to stop. They've been at it for 30 or 40 years, and they've done a really good job. They have built an entire apparatus from the federal government to the local teachers' unions to keep you out of the process. We can get it back on track, but it takes being aggressive. It takes being very transparent with everyone. Again, we can do good math remediation. We can do good reading remediation. We can attract good teachers to the classroom if we go back to the basics on the things that we know to be true.
So Moms for Liberty, I have a question for y'all. Do you know what a woman is? Okay, good. I'm just checking, because people seem to have a real hard time with that, figuring that out these days.
Yeah.
And to your point, you know, I think that it is so incumbent on us as state leaders to let our educators know that we have their backs.
That's right.
Because I'm going to tell you, the vast majority of educators in South Carolina do not believe this nonsense that Washington is trying to push down on our schools.
That's right.
And so it is up to us as parents, as concerned community members, as education leaders, to tell our teachers in the classroom, when you stand up for common sense, we are going to have your back when Washington comes after you. So I want to be really clear to any educators who are here in the room today or who are listening today, we are not blaming you for these problems. Your labor unions do not represent you and your voice, and you need to know that. Okay.
Just to follow up, I love how you said it's common sense. We literally, in our state, have the union that is trying to make comparisons to, you know what, we should have genderqueer and flamer in schools. They're out fighting for these books to stay in schools. But we want the Bible and we want the Constitution out. You know, the guy who wrote the Declaration owned slaves. You know, we probably shouldn't talk. I mean, so literally, injecting pornography, removing the Bible, the Constitution. This is the absurdity that when you go around and talk to most people, they go, I mean, that's a part of our founding. Of course everyone should know that. But our arguments, our position is common sense. But you have such a radical extreme group that has bullied and intimidated their way into getting the most extreme positions, the most extreme ideology that most Americans reject. But folks, we cannot let them get away with it through these bullying tactics. But I agree with Ellen completely. It's common sense.
So we have a few literacy advocates. I'm not going to embarrass them by saying their name right now, but there are a few mama bears in this room who have been fighting for the science of reading and for reading to be taught properly. Emily Hanford is a journalist. She did a podcast called Sold a Story. If you haven't listened to it, yep, I know a lot of our moms have. You need to listen to it because it really explains how do we get here? How do we get to a part of our country, to a time in our country when we have 2/3 of kids not reading on grade level? But this has become partisan. I talk about reading. I know other moms talk about reading on Twitter and social media. And it seems to be this idea of that Democrats own education, or that if you're a conservative parent that you can't talk about the science of reading, and there's all this gatekeeping going on. I loved when I talked with you, Ellen, when we were preparing, and you told me that you're going through a teacher training right now. Can you tell us about, first of all, I love that you're going through the teacher training with your teachers. It's a 2-year process, right? Tell us a little bit about how you're preparing teachers to teach reading properly in South Carolina.
So we are going through the letters training, which is what Mississippi would tell you was at the heart of the Mississippi Miracle and how they turned around reading outcomes in their state. So South Carolina and Mississippi are very similar. We have a lot of shared history, a lot of the same shared demographics, a lot of rural poverty. But you know what? Poverty is not an excuse. It is a challenge, but it is not an excuse. I believe in the God-given potential of every single student sitting in the classrooms in South Carolina. And so doing this letters training is something that I said, I'll do it because I'm not going to ask our teachers to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. And what I've learned through this training is just the incredible advances that we have seen in brain science. We are wired to learn how to speak, but not to learn how to read. And these children are only going to ever get one chance. When you look at our prison population, 70 to 80% of them are functionally illiterate. So reading is everything, and I have been so encouraged. One of the best parts of my first 5 months on this job has been going around to schools, especially schools in high poverty areas where our teachers have started this training. And they said, you know, I was really resistant at first because I was rolling my eyes saying, oh, one more thing, I don't have time to do this. But now that I see what this is doing for my classroom practice, I am devastated that I didn't have this knowledge before. And we are seeing real results for students. And again, this is why we are all in this work, is because it's not about checking boxes. It's about moving the needle for kids.
Jacob, yeah, please.
I agree, and if I were to add about how we need to celebrate, elevate, and put teaching profession and make it the revered profession that we want our best and brightest to go into, there's nothing more important. We have teachers working days, nights, weekends, all year long, doing professional development to perfect their craft. Teaching and learning is a very complicated science, and we need to recognize the commitment that our best educators make. The majority of people want to do what's right. Unfortunately, sometimes they get caught up in a system where they're not giving the right resources, or they're being forced to attend professional development that's not helping them with practice in the classroom. And one of the other challenges that we're definitely finding is when I talk to superintendents about teacher candidates coming out of teacher preparation programs, they tell us they're not ready for the classroom on day one. So what is higher education doing for 4 years to prepare teachers to have this knowledge and come into the classroom and make an impact when they're not? So one of the initiatives we're working on is we're going to assign a letter grade to every college and university's teacher preparation program on how they teach their candidates the science of reading, and some schools are not going to be happy with their letter grade.
And I think right to what Jacob's point is, we can't look at this the wrong way. We have to go back to, Ryan mentioned, they've been at this for 30, 40 years. Where did they start? They started at the university system. They worked their way down. They put this indoctrination into the university system, and then they infected the teaching colleges. We need to go back, and we're going to look at it in Florida, and revamp the entire way we teach our teachers. Not just professional development, but going back to the beginning. And we've seen now this classical education movement in Florida that's growing by leaps and bounds. So much so that Miami-Dade, our largest school district, has proffered an item to spin off a classical model within of our public schools. I think there's the answer, is we have to go back to the basics. We have to look at that. And at the same time, we have to, and I'm gonna steal this from Moms for Liberty, and I've done it before, you probably heard me say it, is in Florida, our parents don't co-parent with the government.
That's right.
And while we have to keep our parents and our constituents and our communities involved, at the same time that we put in these reforms, and it all ties together. Think about what Governor DeSantis talked about: parent rights, school choice, accountability and transparency. All of that leads together, because when you empower parents, if you don't give them the right choices for school choice, they're trapped. It's a monopoly. As all have mentioned here, the elites think they know better. And no, at the end of the day, parents are back. They're paying attention. And I think what needs to happen is we need to reform it from the top all the way down. And that includes our schools of education, making sure the science of reading is taught, making sure that we get the nonsense out, making sure that there's transparency, and that we get back to basics. I think all of that ties together. There's a common theme there. And I think it has to be tied together. If we don't do the whole thing, then it doesn't work.
So I think that's a great point. In 2022, Moms for Liberty endorsed in over 500 school board races, which was, clap for yourselves. You guys did it. Amazing work. We won over half of those races. So you talk about everyone working together, right? You've got school board members. What are you doing to help school board members to be able to understand what the leadership, the governor, the education leader in your state, to connect with those school board leaders? Because oftentimes you might have a superintendent in between you and that school board, and it becomes difficult for school board members to navigate, right? So are you doing anything in your state that's innovative to help school board members to be able to have, please, go ahead.
I'm not shy about it. I talk directly to our school board members. I mean, they call and they have questions. We want to make sure, I think the most important thing, and I think we have an advantage in Florida, we only have 67 districts, right? So there's less, but you have to speak direct. They need to be in the loop. Because sometimes folks get elected, I know you guys know this well, and you have an administration there at the local level that is not providing that information, so there's a disconnect. If they want to speak directly to me, I have no problems telling them what is going on.
It's wonderful.
I think also another strategy, agree, we have to be in front of these people each and every single day and help and educate and inform what some of the challenges and issues are. So in the state of Florida, that's 67 school districts. State of Arkansas is about 230. So when you start looking at size and scale, it gets a little bit different. It's probably the same in other states. So the reality is they have to rely on their associations, because 230 school districts tend to not be able to figure out model policies all on their own. You need to read the model policies that are being pushed to these school boards by their associations.
Absolutely.
And make sure, and we go straight to the association. I talked to them, I was like, I am reviewing these policies. I think they need to be updated. I don't think this is in line with what we're doing as a state. And our recommendation is to move it. And fortunately, because we've built a good relationship, they're willing to do that. And that's really where the rubber meets the road.
And I think you have to be open-eyed, too, about the fact that a lot of the advice that these school board members and districts are going to be getting is from lawyers that are going to take the most risk-averse possible.
That's right.
You know, and I understand they're trying to be good fiduciary agents and not attract federal lawsuits and everything else that we see coming out of this incredibly heavy-handed Biden administration. But that again comes back to them knowing that you at the state level are going to have their back when they do the right thing. So I think honestly one of the greatest powers of the state education agencies are communication, and that is something that I don't know that we have always in South Carolina at least leaned into in the past in the way that we need to. But to your point, Manny, I need to be talking directly with school boards and building a coalition of like-minded school board members. I need to be talking directly to teachers, not through the filter of their association. I need to talk directly to principals. And we need to be building a coalition of not just our education professionals, but involving our business community, our faith community, our parental community, because again, these are our schools and we have to take responsibility.
Absolutely. Right.
And you know, guys, you've seen, 20 or 30 years ago, George Soros began dumping money into school board races and DA races. And, a lot of us are scratching our head going, county DA races, school board, what's going on? Well, you're seeing what's going on. In Oklahoma, we have these very strange election dates at which we have school board elections. So low turnout, they're super sleepy, and these associations, you spend a little bit of money, and they get in people that you're going, how in the world did you get a woke left school board member in Oklahoma? Well, we are going to make school board elections great again, okay? We are bringing a lot of attention to the school board races. We are working on moving the election date so that they're more prominent, so that people can see them, people know about them. And again, the Moms for Liberty, you guys have been spot on the tactics that you guys have had. Make the school board elections important, but make the school board meetings important. I mean, all of this are great venues that we have just over the years, and again, it's because parents are busy. I mean, I know what I've got a 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 4-year-old, and 2-year-old. I get it. The nights get busy and you get in sports, but you guys have done a tremendous job going, no, we are prioritizing school board meetings. Oh, we're showing up. We're showing up in mass. School board election, we're going to find someone good to run. We're going to go out and support them. But this is how we've got school boards that think that they work for the superintendent.
Right.
And the superintendent comes out of these woke higher ed institutions. They're all in their own association, and it's a fixed game. But when we take the school boards back, and when we take the school board meetings back, you flipped it. And once you flip it, folks, they can't get it back. But we have got to finish the job and bring that accountability back to our schools.
So I think parents are very engaged. I don't want to interrupt your clapping. That was great. So yes, clap. Sorry. I think parents are very engaged now, but we have seen, Terry McAuliffe, right? Bring Randy Weingarten on that stage. And I mean, he talks about, parents shouldn't have a say in education. So for all of the parents that are maybe watching right now on the live stream or that are here in the audience, advice for them. Love is an expertise. So that alone, right? You as a parent have a seat at the table. You know your child better than anyone else. But I think sometimes in education or the education system likes to make things kind of complicated for parents, right? Lots of acronyms, gatekeeping going on. So advice for parents about pushing through. If you're advocating for your child, if you're concerned your child is not getting what they need in school, what does that conversation look and sound like?
I think number one is showing up. I think what Ryan mentioned is all of a sudden, for years, we've been looking for this. Showing up, paying attention. School boards operated in the dark for so long just because nobody paid attention.
Sure.
And parents showing up, making noise the proper way, making noise, making things known, showing up and speaking at these meetings. Sometimes it feels like a futile effort, but it's not, because what we've seen and what we're seeing now has happened because folks like the ones filling this room right here have shown up to school board meetings and have asked questions and have brought to light material and have made it transparent. If we have to keep that light. It's like a dose of antibiotics. Ryan said you can't stop now. If you stop the dose before it's completed, the infection comes back. We need to continue to pay attention, and folks like us on this stage are dependent on all of you to bring these things to light so that we can deal with it, because otherwise it's literally we play whack-a-mole every day.
Sure.
You know, and I think too, you know, as a teacher for 10 years, there was never a moment that a parent didn't come up to me and ask questions about being more involved that it wasn't helpful for their kids.
Right.
Any good teacher should welcome you in. Folks, that you're exactly right. The complexity argument is intentionally meant to keep you out. Hey, government does a really good job at that. This is too complicated. You really can't understand it. That's a load of crap, okay? You absolutely not only can understand it, you can understand school finances. They try to do the same thing. They try to not, you really don't understand how all this works here behind the scenes. Yes, you can. Good teachers want you to be involved. So if a teacher tells you, you know, this is too, okay, you need to start asking even more questions.
Right.
You start with that local teacher, and then you work your way up. But again, if that's a good teacher, they want you there. And folks, again, the reality is, and I just want to be really clear, these FAR groups have declared war on our classroom.
Yes.
They did it. Not you. They declared the war.
Yeah.
You are here, and you are fighting to get the schools back, to get the education back. So you didn't start it, but we're going to finish it.
That's right. That's right.
And as Commissioner Diaz said, we have to. The stakes are too high. If we don't finish it, if we don't take the schools back, folks, the institutions are so far gone. Media is gone. It's captured, okay? You know, all of entertainment is captured. It's all being pushed on our kids, okay? School systems, folks, we have the ability to get these back. Our values are the values that will equate to education excellence. We can do this, but we have to, and we have to do it now.
Go ahead, Jacob.
I was going to echo the sentiments from Secretary Walters. It's okay to ask questions of your teachers. They want to hear from parents. And as we're getting more sophisticated, a lot of school districts are getting better at updating portals. I know in our family, we check that to make sure our kids are turning in their homework. And if they're not, we're emailing the teacher, and you have to build that relationship. You meet your principals, meet your school counselors. If there's any concerns or questions, it's okay to ask those questions. We need to make sure that we're creating places where students learn and not where adults work. And if we can do that and switch that paradigm, we're going to see rapid improvement growth.
Ellen, closing thoughts, and then we're going to have a special message from someone, but please.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just love that you call yourselves joyful warriors.
That's right.
Because as Ryan said, we are in a fight, and there are going to be forces arrayed against you. You know them. They have already come after you, that are going to try to say, well, you're just culture warriors. You're just fighting battles that were over decades ago. Get with the times. Y'all are not culture warriors. You are common sense warriors.
That's good.
You are reality warriors. And don't ever let them shame you for asking questions. Go in, be curious. No one knows your student like you do. And, you know, I think for those of us sitting on this stage today, as Manny said, your voice is invaluable because you give us the courage to get up every day and go to work and take the stands that we know we are going to get pilloried for. But they are the right stands to take because that is how we are going to save our country. So thank you so much for having all of us today. This has been amazing.
Thank you. So a special invitation today went out to the former Secretary of Education, Bill Bennett. and he was unable to be with us, but I know he's been working with all of you, and he is making his voice heard and helping to move us forward in education. So we're going to take 2 minutes. We're going to hear a message from Mr. Bennett, and then I have some other details for you for the rest of the afternoon. But let's roll that video, please.
Well, I'm so pleased to be part of this meeting, even in a small way, and so pleased to listen to that panel of real education leaders. Jacob Oliva of Arkansas, and boy, they hit the ground running in Arkansas. Governor Sanders, I wrote about that and so pleased. Florida, Manny Diaz, and Manny knows how to direct, and direct in the right direction. And he doesn't take no for an answer when it comes to things that matter. I've had the pleasure to speak to Ellen Weaver and her team, and they've got some very exciting things planned. Ryan Walters, Oklahoma, is an entrepreneur, an education entrepreneur, and I am so pleased to know him and am so encouraged by what he's doing. Ladies and gentlemen, these are leaders who know what children need to learn, and they are respectful of the rights of parents. They know what they stand for, and they know what they won't stand for. And boy, it's very important, both sides of that. I would like to encourage all of you who are there to be strong, to be steadfast. Don't get discouraged. If you do get discouraged, call up another member, have a chat, and then go back, get a good night's sleep, and go into the fray the next day. It's so important, the work you're doing. I'm so proud to know you. I'm so proud to be asked by this wonderful organization, Tiffany and all, I've known Tiffany for a while, to speak. Let me know if I can help. I still got some ideas. I still got some books. And if I can be of any service to any of you, please call on me. Life is a race between education and catastrophe. Let's make it education.
So up next, we're going to have 2 sets of breakouts coming up. You see them right here: Protecting Parental Rights, the Federalist Papers, and Dream Team. And then we'll have another set, Dark Money's Infiltration in Education, Driving the Narrative, and and Holding the Line. After that, for our next session, we will be visiting with President Trump. Yes, it's great. When we have every presidential candidate coming and wanting to speak to you about the issues that you are concerned about, education and parental rights, American parents and kids are winning. Please be patient with us. There's going to be quite a bit of security. You need to leave all of your bags in your room. You will not be able to go through the security line with any bags. Security doors open at 3. We have 700 people to get through as quickly as possible. The last thing I'll ask you is, please, when you leave here, go visit our vendors. They have been kind enough to make the trip here, to bring information that I think will be very valuable to you. Ask questions, take the information, see how you can partner with them in your own communities, because they really care about the issues we care about, and we appreciate them coming very much. To my panel, this panel is I'm not going to lie, I was looking forward to this for weeks. I'm so thankful for all of you and the work that you are doing. It is going to take an army of parents working with you alongside of teachers and educators and innovators to right this ship. But we are going to reclaim and reform public education in America because our kids deserve it. So thank you very much.